All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be exploring this really fascinating book called An Ascension Handbook.
Oh, yeah.
And it's basically about, well, ascension.
Yeah.
It's channeled by this being called Serapis.
Right.
And Tony Slugs, who,
Mm.
has been on the show before,
Mm.
adds in his own interpretations and commentary.
Right.
So get ready for some pretty mind-bending ideas about energy and reality and, our true nature and all that good stuff.
I think what I find really interesting is the whole central premise of the book, which is that Earth and humanity are going through what they call a planetary ascension.
Okay.
So it's imagine a shift to a higher frequency of
Okay,
existence.
so wait.
Yeah.
Planetary ascension, what does that even look like in practice?
Well, it's described as a process of spiritual awakening.
Okay.
It's about remembering our true nature as spirit,
Mm-hmm.
which is this vast multidimensional being.
Yeah.
The you that you identify with is just one tiny projection of that larger self, right?
Okay.
And basically we chose to forget this truth, to experience separation and kind of explore all the different facets of what they call the source,
Right.
the ultimate creative force behind everything.
So are we saying that, we volunteered to play this cosmic game of hide and seek
Uh-huh.
with our true selves?
That's a great analogy.
Because I think I need a rematch. I'm feeling a little lost right now.
Well, the book does use the metaphor of a game to describe this physical world.
Right.
It's designed by spirit, basically, as a way for us to learn and grow through challenges.
I
Think
see.
of karma as one of the rules of this game.
Mm-hmm.
It creates those intense emotional situations to
Mhm.
see how we respond and to prompt us to learn and evolve.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
But if it's a game, wouldn't having access to all the information at once kind of make it a little too easy?
Right.
Past, present, future. Book talks about simultaneous time, right?
Mhm.
Does that mean that time as we know it is just an illusion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Serapis definitely points out that our linear perception of time is simply a construct of this physical plane.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of spirit, everything is happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
Past, present, future all exist at the same time.
Okay. My brain just did a backflip.
Yeah.
So if time is simultaneous,
Yeah.
could I theoretically access any point in time?
Exactly.
That's a game changer.
And the book does delve into techniques for doing just that.
Wow.
But back to Ascension, the game itself seems to be kind of shifting. It's moving away from that karmic eye for an eye type of balancing
Right.
and towards something called divine expression. So it's less about punishment and more about unconditional love and realizing our true nature as spirit.
So less about evening the score
Right.
and more about expressing our inherent divinity.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But if we're all on this ascension journey, are some people better equipped for it than others?
Yeah. Well, that's where Tony Stubbs's commentary adds this really interesting layer.
Okay.
He points to younger generations, indigo and crystal children,
Right.
suggesting they're naturally more in tune with this shift.
Right.
And he makes this really passionate argument that society needs to adapt to support these kids, not force them to conform to the old paradigms.
Right. Because if these children are already vibrating at a higher frequency,
Right.
trying to squeeze them into the old mold would be like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, right?
Exactly.
So speaking of vibrations, the book also talks a lot about energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the role of energy in this whole ascension process?
Energy is fundamental.
Okay.
The book states that everything is ultimately organized energy.
Okay.
It even breaks down the different types of energy fields we have, physical, emotional, mental,
Right.
each with its own frequency and impact on our experience.
Right.
And these fields aren't isolated. They
Right.
constantly interact and influence each other.
So we're not just physical beings walking around.
Right.
We're like walking energy fields,
Exactly.
constantly transmitting and receiving information on all these subtle levels.
Yeah.
That's a pretty wild thought.
Yeah.
But, wouldn't it be easier to just, block out all the negative energy?
Well, the book kind of addresses this by challenging what it calls the 3 great myths.
Okay.
It tackles our common assumptions about love, truth, and power,
Okay.
arguing that our conventional understandings of these concepts are actually holding us back.
Myth-busting time.
Yeah.
Let's start with love.
Okay.
What's the so-called myth of love?
Well, it boils down to this idea that true love is about allowing joy and delight to flow freely through us,
Okay.
not clinging to conditional expectations or possessive
So
attachment.
it's not about demanding exclusivity over someone's body,
Yeah,
but celebrating the divinity within everyone.
exactly.
That's a really interesting take on love. It shifts the focus from like, I need you to be this way to make me happy,
Right.
to like, I recognize and appreciate the inherent worth in both of us.
Exactly.
But what about truth? Isn't there some kind of universal truth out there?
Well, that's the myth of truth.
Okay.
The book states that there's no one galactic truth,
Okay.
only individual perspectives.
Hmm?
So what we believe shapes our reality.
Right.
What rings true for me might be different for you, and that's okay.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the power of individual belief systems in shaping our personal realities.
So if reality is more fluid than we think, then our beliefs act like filters that shape our perceptions.
Exactly.
It's like we're creating our own realities based on what we choose to see and believe.
Yeah.
But isn't that kind of overwhelming?
Well, that brings us to the myth of power.
Okay.
The book argues that true power isn't about controlling external circumstances or dominating others.
Okay.
It's about aligning with spirit. It's about recognizing the immense power within ourselves. The power to create, to heal, to love unconditionally.
So it's not about power over, but power with.
Yeah,
Aligning with the universal flow rather than trying to force our will on the world.
you got it.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that true power comes from within and from aligning with our true nature as spirit.
Right.
And that's where the book gets even deeper.
Okay, well, I guess that's where we'll pick up in the next part. We'll delve further into like, the practical aspects of Ascension.
Right.
And explore how to apply these concepts in everyday life.
We'll be exploring the themes of shame and control.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Two concepts that are deeply intertwined with our journey of ascension.
Stay tuned. Welcome back. So we're diving deeper into an Ascension Handbook, and things are about to get really interesting. We left off talking about those 3 great myths, and I'm curious to hear more about how we can actually like apply these concepts in our lives. The book explores some pretty heavy themes too, right? Like shame and control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those feel pretty relevant to the human experience.
Well, Serapis actually suggests that shame is like this fundamental energetic block. Like it's almost like a program that's embedded in our very being.
Okay.
And he describes it as like this vibration that's designed to create the illusion of separation from spirit.
Right.
That feeling of not being good enough. It kind of keeps us trapped in this cycle of fear and self-judgment.
Right.
And it prevents us from like fully embracing our true divine nature.
So shame is like this cosmic prank making us forget who we really are.
Exactly.
No wonder it's so hard to shake.
It acts like a veil that clouds our perception, right?
Right.
It makes us believe we're inherently flawed and separate from the source. But here's the empowering part. The book offers like tools for releasing this shame
Okay.
through awareness, acceptance, and forgiveness,
Right.
both of ourselves and others. We can dismantle this like energetic barrier and reconnect with our true essence.
So it's about recognizing that shame is just an energy,
Right.
like a program running in the background, and it doesn't define who we truly are.
Exactly.
But what about control? I mean, it feels like we humans are like wired to try to control our lives, even when things are clearly out of our hands.
Well, the book directly challenges this obsession with control.
Okay.
Serapis encourages us to surrender to the flow of spirit. Instead of clinging to this illusion that we can micromanage every aspect of our lives,
Right.
he suggests that aligning with spirit's intent
Right.
through joy, service to others, and following our heart's true desires
Right.
leads to a much more fulfilling experience.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
Yeah.
It feels so counterintuitive to let go of control,
Right.
especially in a world that's constantly telling us to strive and achieve.
Right.
How can surrendering control actually lead to more power?
That's a great question, and it gets to like the heart of the book's message.
Okay.
Tony Stubbs, actually, the commentator, shares this interesting like 3-part test
Okay.
from this being called Ariel to determine if an action is aligned with spirit's intent. And the test is really simple. Does it bring joy?
Okay.
Is it fun? Does it serve the light?
Okay.
And if the answer to all 3 is yes, then you're likely on the right track.
That test is surprisingly straightforward.
Yeah.
Just follow joy, fun, and service to the light. It almost sounds too good to be true.
Well, it might sound simple, but it speaks to this profound truth.
Right.
When we align with our heart's deepest desires
Mm-hmm.
and act in service to others, we naturally tap into the flow of spirit.
Right.
it becomes less about forcing things to happen
Right.
and more about allowing things to unfold.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here.
Yeah.
It's about integrating these principles,
Yeah.
releasing shame, surrendering control,
Mm-hmm.
aligning with joy and service.
Right.
And that's how we navigate this whole ascension process, right?
Yeah.
But how do we even know what Spirit's intent is for us?
Well, that's where intuition and inner guidance come in.
Okay.
And, the book encourages us to cultivate a deeper connection with our inner selves.
Right.
That still small voice within,
Right.
it also emphasizes the importance of paying attention to, like, synchronicities and
Right.
signs from the universe.
Mhm.
They're seemingly random events
Right.
that often hold profound meaning.
So it's about trusting our gut feelings and paying attention to the messages that the universe is sending our way.
Exactly.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Sometimes those coincidences are just too perfect to ignore.
It's about becoming more attuned to the subtle guidance that's always available to us,
Right.
both from within
Yeah.
and from the universe itself. It's
Right.
about recognizing that we're not alone on this journey. We have access to support and guidance every step of the way.
That's reassuring, especially when dealing with concepts as big as planetary ascension and simultaneous time. Speaking of simultaneous time, you mentioned earlier that the book actually delves into techniques for accessing different points in time.
Yeah,
Can we talk more about that?
absolutely. This
Yeah.
is where things get really mind-bending. The book suggests that by shifting our consciousness
Okay.
and working with our energy, we can potentially influence events in the so-called past or future.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking time travel here?
Uh-huh.
Because I'm not sure I'm ready to hop in a DeLorean just yet.
Not quite time travel in the traditional sense. It's
Okay.
more about recognizing that since time is ultimately an illusion,
Right.
we have more influence over our reality than we realize.
Okay, so less about physically traveling through time
Right.
and more about tapping into the interconnectedness of it all.
Precisely. It's about understanding that our thoughts and emotions and actions in the present moment can have ripple effects across all timelines.
Okay, this is definitely making me rethink my relationship with time. It's less linear and rigid, more fluid and interconnected than I ever imagined.
And that shift in perspective is a key part of the ascension process.
Okay.
It opens us up to a whole new realm of possibilities.
So what does this actually look like in practice? How can we tap into this power of simultaneous time?
Well, the book explores various techniques,
Okay.
including meditation, visualization, and energy work.
Right.
And it also emphasizes the importance of intention, clearly defining what we want to create or change in our reality.
So it's about consciously directing our energy and focusing our intention on what we want to experience, regardless of the perceived limitations of time.
Exactly. It's about understanding that we're not just passive observers in this grand cosmic play,
Right.
but active participants in shaping our reality.
Right.
And that brings us to another key concept in the book, the nature of reality itself.
Okay, let's dive into that rabbit hole. How does the book challenge our conventional understanding of reality?
Well, Serapis uses some, intriguing analogies to illustrate his points.
Okay.
He starts by highlighting the limitations of our senses.
Okay.
We tend to think we're perceiving an objective reality out there,
Right.
but in reality, we're only experiencing a tiny sliver of the energetic spectrum.
So we're like those people in Plato's cave, only seeing shadows of the true reality.
That's a great analogy. And what we see through that limited lens is further shaped by our individual beliefs,
Right.
emotions, and past experiences.
Okay.
Serapis uses the analogy of a hologram to explain this.
Okay.
He suggests that reality isn't this fixed, solid thing,
Right.
but more like a projection of consciousness.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. If reality is more like a hologram, does that mean we can actually change it?
That's the exciting part. According to Serapis, we're not just passive observers of this holographic reality.
Right.
We're active participants in its creation.
Okay.
Our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs act like the film that projects the hologram.
Right.
By shifting our internal state, we can alter the projection and experience a different reality.
So it's like we're all walking around with these internal projectors
Mm-hmm.
shaping our reality based on what we're projecting.
Yeah.
But if we're responsible for creating our own reality, what happens when things go wrong? Am I to blame for every negative experience?
Well, that's a common concern, but Serapis emphasizes that blame is not part of the equation.
Okay.
He suggests that we view challenging experiences as opportunities for growth and learning,
Okay.
rather than as punishments or failures.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to those challenges
Right.
and what lessons we extract from them.
That makes sense. It's about taking responsibility for our creative power
Right.
without getting trapped in the cycle of self-judgment.
Yeah.
But if we're all co-creating this reality together,
Right.
how do our individual choices impact the collective?
Well, Tony Stubbs actually highlights this point beautifully.
Okay.
He reminds us that planetary ascension is a collective process.
Right.
We're all in this together.
Right.
And each individual's shift in consciousness contributes to the overall shift of humanity.
Okay.
It's like each of us is holding a piece of the puzzle. And as we awaken to our true nature, the bigger picture starts to emerge.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
It suggests that our individual efforts toward ascension have a ripple effect,
Yeah.
creating positive change beyond ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about personal transformation, but about contributing to the evolution of the entire species.
Yeah.
That's a powerful message.
Exactly. Each step we take toward realizing our true nature as spirit
Right.
ripples outward, influencing the collective consciousness and contributing to a more loving and harmonious world.
Wow, this conversation has given me a lot to think about. There's so much depth and wisdom in this book. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, we have covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
but there's always more to explore. And that's what's so exciting about this journey of ascension. It's a constant process of unfolding and discovery.
I'm definitely walking away with a whole new perspective on reality, energy, and my own creative power. But before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear your personal takeaway from the book. What resonated with you the most?
For me, it's this invitation to embrace the unknown and trust the process.
Yeah.
You know, the book constantly reminds us that we're not meant to have all the answers.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's about surrendering to the mystery
Mhm.
and allowing ourselves to be guided by something greater than ourselves.
That's a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah.
And I think it's a perfect note to end on. But before we say goodbye, any final thoughts for our listeners?
Well, the book concludes with this powerful invitation
Okay.
to explore the concept of simultaneous time.
Hmm.
You know, how might accessing this perspective impact your everyday life? It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Embrace your power,
Hmm.
trust the process,
Right.
and enjoy the journey.
I love that. Embrace your power, trust the process, and enjoy the journey. Words to live by. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring. So, welcome back to our deep dive into an Ascension Handbook. We were just talking about how our individual journeys contribute to a larger shift in consciousness.
Right.
Pretty mind-blowing. But before we wrap things up, I'm really curious to hear more about how the book challenges our understanding of reality.
You know, Serapis uses this really interesting analogy.
Okay.
He compares our perception of reality to like looking through a keyhole.
Okay.
And we think we're seeing the whole picture, but in reality, we're only experiencing a tiny fraction of what's actually out there.
So we're like mistaking the shadows for reality.
Yeah, exactly. And what we see through that limited lens is further distorted by, you know, our beliefs,
Yeah.
emotions, and past experiences. It's like each of us is wearing a pair of, you know, custom-made glasses that filter our perception.
That makes me wonder, if we're only seeing a sliver of reality, what's the rest of it like? What are we missing?
That's the million-dollar question. And the book suggests that the answer lies in expanding our consciousness,
Okay.
tapping into our true nature as spirit. Remember, Serapis says that our true self is this vast, multidimensional being,
Right.
not limited by, you know, the constraints of the physical world.
So by tapping into that larger self,
Yeah,
we can start to see beyond the limitations of our physical senses
exactly.
and experience a more expansive reality.
Precisely. And that's where this concept of the hologram comes in.
Right.
You know, Serapis suggests that reality isn't this fixed, solid thing,
Right.
but more like a projection of consciousness.
So it's almost like a
Yeah.
giant cosmic movie that we're all participating in
Exactly.
as both the actors and the audience.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So if reality is like a hologram, does that mean we can actually change it? Do we have that much power?
That's the exciting part. The book suggests that we're not just passive observers in this holographic reality, we're active participants in its creation.
So our thoughts and emotions and beliefs, they're kind of like the
Yeah.
film that projects the hologram.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. By shifting our internal state, we can literally change the projection and experience a different reality.
I mean, this is reminding me of that famous quote,
Yeah.
change your thoughts and you change your world.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing that we have a much greater influence over our reality than we've been led to believe.
Right.
And the book provides all sorts of practical techniques
Right.
for changing the film of our internal projector, clearing out old limiting beliefs, releasing trapped emotions,
Right.
aligning with the frequency of love and joy.
Okay, this is all starting to click.
Yeah.
But if we're responsible for creating our own reality, does that mean we're also to blame for everything bad that happens to us? I mean, that feels like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, that's a common concern, but Serapis emphasizes that blame isn't part of the equation.
Okay.
He suggests that we view challenging experiences as opportunities
Oh,
for growth and learning
Yeah.
rather than punishments or failures.
so it's about recognizing our power to choose
Yeah,
how we respond to challenges and what lessons we extract from them.
exactly.
And it's not about getting stuck in that cycle of self-judgment.
Exactly. And Tony Stubbs adds a really important point here. He reminds us that this journey of ascension isn't just about individual transformation. It's a collective process.
Right.
As each of us wakes up to our true nature,
Right.
we contribute to a larger shift in consciousness that benefits all of humanity.
So it's almost like we're all holding hands on this giant cosmic escalator.
Haha, I love that analogy. It captures the essence of the book's message, that we're all interconnected,
Right.
and that our individual choices have a ripple effect on the collective.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. Like, I'm walking away with a whole new perspective
Yeah.
on reality, energy, my own place in the grand scheme of things.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Any final thoughts for our listeners as we wrap up this exploration of an Ascension Handbook?
If there's one thing I hope you take away from this book, it's the understanding that you are a powerful creator of your own reality. You are not limited by the illusions of separation or shame or control. By aligning with your true nature as spirit, you can access a limitless source of love, joy, and creative power. Yeah,
That's really inspiring, and I think we can all use a little more of that these days.
for sure.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into an Ascension Handbook. And until next time, keep exploring.
Keep exploring.